Alright guys, Kremp here again. I hope you're doing good and enjoying your day so far. Big drama in the CDL last night with Thieves Envoy giving his perspective on the current state of the league, the disrespect that he sometimes sees from the rookies towards the veterans, but especially his perspective on the lack of necessity for CDL expansion. Many players, many commentators, pretty heated discussion on this and why they disagree on this particular topic. Very much interested your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Thought this is kind of cool to look back on as well actually here. This was the World Championship Grand Finals. It was, well, 10 years ago. Can you believe it? 10 years ago, a couple of days ago, was Denially. So, man, look at Attach. This, of course, Attach at the time, and still to this present day, the youngest ever Call of Duty World Champion, 18 years, 2 months of age. In this image, here's Clayster, and then, of course, you've got Crowder, as he is now, Replays, and JCap winning the World Championship 10 years ago, back in 2015, in Advanced Warfare. Of course, notably back then, the World Championship was much earlier in the year. It was back in, like, you know, obviously March time, March, April often, because they wanted to use it to promote the second DLC. It was all rather confusing. But of course, they played famously Team Revenge in the finals, Nagafen, Facento, Remy, and Aqua, who'd kind of come out of nowhere to get to that point. But yeah, the Riot Search and Destroy, one of my favorite all-time S&D maps, that goes their way in the end. And Denial Esports get the victory. And yeah, it actually mentions Attach here at 18 years of age. It's actually really difficult to imagine that anyone would be able to overcome Attach's record, because, as I say, Champs is now far later in the year, and you have to be 18 to compete all season long. So if you're 18 right as the year starts, by Champs you're going to be nearly 19. So, you know, the only way for Attach's record to ever be beaten right now is for someone to get subbed in like, you know, May, right when they're 18, and then they win Champs in June or whatever, right? But obviously for that to happen, we'd need some talent coming through the ranks, of which we don't necessarily have so much of, and we'll see that in the coming minutes. I did want to share this clip as well. I'll put it for you guys at the end of the video, because it was a little bit of drama between aBeZy and BenJ JoeDeceives. We know that BenJ, when, let's say, FaZe have been struggling over the last couple of years, it tends to be a lot of his criticism has fell on aBeZy. I don't know if that's justified or not, but I thought it was pretty funny, this interaction they had at the after-party bar on the Sunday night a week or so ago. But let's dive into some of this Envoy-related drama, right? Because I wanted to show a couple of clips, and then we'll dive into some of the reaction here. Illy, I know that he tweeted a while ago, trying to make his way back into the Pro League, of course, feeling good about making that happen. But Envoy gave a couple of thoughts on stream last night. He was talking about how some of the rookies, pretty disrespectful, they're in game chat, they're standing up, they're doing all this stuff, they're getting top 12 every event. Now, I think a lot of the words here from Envoy would hit a little bit harder had they actually won the most recent major, because it doesn't really matter what Envoy says. If you win the major, you can say what you want. But obviously, they didn't win the major. They came top 4 at the major. They lost to Boston, and then they got bopped out as well by Toronto in the losers bracket in a hot 3-0. So I'm not really sure that they can say all that much right now. But look, Envoy gives his thoughts regardless, and I've got no issue with stuff like this. The rookies aren't going to stop talking trash. The OGs, like Envoy now is, they're not going to stop giving their perspective as well. And it's the kind of classic dynamic between the veteran players and the rookies. And it was the same when Scrap was first coming into the league as well. You know, no respect really from the older generation. And that's sometimes how it is. And I think that's kind of understandable. The point, though, that really was causing a bit of controversy was this one. So Envoy was giving his thoughts on CDL expansion. I mean, let's be honest. We've talked about expansion for 5 years. I mean, probably 6 years. Ever since the CDL was first announced. And we said, oh, there's only 12 teams. Why not 16? 16 is the best number for teams. Like, I'm never gonna not die on this hill, as it were, because it's just beautiful. It's 4 times 4. You get 4 groups of 4. Like, the way that the bracket can work, you can do a 16-team double elimination bracket if you want, like we used to do for Champs back in the day. 12-team league, you've got to start people and losers. It's just ugly. It's just ugly, and 16 is the best for various reasons. I also think there is enough talent to support 16 teams in the league. Would there be more discrepancy between the best and the rest? Absolutely there would. But that would, I think, be okay if the league was structured in a slightly different way. Let's say you had, you know, an alpha stream and a Bravo stream, there were a couple of matches going on simultaneously. I think it would make an awful lot of sense. But Envoy says expansion nowadays simply is not needed anymore because the talent is not good enough anymore to make it justified. Maybe a few years ago, we needed expansion, go from 12 to 16 teams. Nowadays, he just doesn't believe there's enough talent to justify the acquisition of 4 more teams.
Bro, expansion is not needed. That shit is dead. You think some of the matches are boring to watch now? Yeah, let's expand that shit. The talent is just not good anymore, bro. It's straight up. Like, some of the talent nowadays is better, and the teams are structured better, but like, dude, there is way less talent. For CWL, last time there were 16 teams, the bottom 6 teams were still dog shit. No, like these matches will be even more uncompetitive. Like, it's unfortunate for the Falcon boys and stuff. Like, they're obviously making switches and stuff after they tried out their roster, but like, bro, like if you add 4 more teams, it'd all be like that, unless you just added like, you made like a draft and like had like a lot of the top teams split up. Doesn't change that like all the top teams have the best budget, most resources. I mean, what is the difference between like the bottom 6 teams in the league and just challenger teams? They all want to switch. They all want to drop each other anyway. It's the same shit. And there's just like, I mean, there's some decent talent coming up and shit, but like, I can't tip any of these people. I got like hell of these rookies are, you know, in game chat, standing up, fucking doing all this bullshit, thinking they run this shit, getting top 12 every event, top 8. Like, the rookies come in from the last couple of years, probably like after AG and Sib, and most of them just get top 12. I mean, dude, I promise you, my rookie season, I was carrying us to fucking, but not top 12. I promise you that.
So what do you guys think about this in the comments below? Of course, we're going to go into lots of reaction over the coming minutes. I kind of see this as a bit of like a symptom of the problem in a way, whereby what Envoy's saying is, oh, there's not enough talent, so we don't need to expand. I think they're correlated to some great degree. If there was expansion, you'd probably find more talent. So, and I think it's like a chicken and an egg thing, or a catch-22, or whatever you want to say, where if there's no expansion, the talent is limited, and we'll discuss why in a second. And if there is expansion, maybe the opportunity would raise. So I don't think it's as clear-cut as Envoy thinks that it is. But other players, of course, are going to agree, and I get it, right? Like, if I was a pro player on Envoy's level, on a team as good as they frankly should be, and maybe you're not necessarily at the moment, I'd probably feel similarly to be like, well, we slam these bottom teams anyway, so what's the point adding me 4 more to slam as well? I do get it, and Scrappy says, this guy's a complete idiot. Of course, he's joking. A lot of players right now can make a lot of teams top 4, he says. And then he says, you're a disgrace at Envoy. And then Scrappy says, I'm completely trolling. Expansion would add 4 terrible teams. So, you know, Scrappy completely agreeing with Envoy, despite obviously kind of doubling down on the backlash, shall we say, with some of the replies. And, you know, as he says, completely trolling. So I guess the implication is that he does not believe that there's many players that can improve a number of teams out there in the league. Of course, there are some, and there have been some, as we'll see, let's say, from Neptune in a couple of seconds, who was actually on the screen playing for one of these teams in 8s while Envoy was watching it. But we got lots of reaction. As Sensor says, the talent in challenges is absolutely qualified to compete with the best players and teams in the world. Couldn't disagree more with this take. Now, look, if you took the best 4 players, or if you took the best couple of challengers teams and you threw them straight into the league, how would they get on? You know, some of them I think would be respectable. Some of the players on those teams may be able to improve some of the real top teams in the league, such as what Neptune recently has done with the Vancouver Surge. And some of them would be horrifically bad. You know, it is what it is. It was the same way back in the World War II season when we had 16 teams in the Pro League, and the bottom 2 teams were pretty bad. But apart from that, every other 14 team or so was better. I think, like, right now in the CDL, we have, I mean, obviously Falcons, but they're a bit of an outlier given what's obviously recently happened. And then, like, with the Saudi project and everything. And then Gentlemates have just been horrifically managed and run kind of from start to finish. But we have kind of like 10 respectable teams in the league, and then 2 not so respectable teams. If we had 16 teams, I honestly think we would have like 14 respectable teams and 2 not respectable teams. The worst teams are always going to be the worst teams. It is what it is. But if you add more kind of options in, I actually think that it doesn't necessarily limit things as much as you might expect. As Neptune says, disagree with Envoy's take. Hopefully they'll expand the league with more spots so challenger players can get more opportunities. And I also think the point that I was making about the catch-22 is more like, if you add more opportunities, it enables players to actually like believe that they can get to the league, because we've seen lots of players, let's say Exceed, for example. I mean, I'm not sure he actually is fully going to retire, but he certainly tweeted with the intention seemingly to do so after the event. And we've seen a number of players step away over the last year or so because, you know, the opportunities to get back into the league simply aren't really there. A guy like Afro, for example, I mean, look, European player, right? So getting back into the league is going to be a challenge, visas and stuff like that. But he has been cooking in challenges recently. And he's probably undoubtedly the best player left in challenges right now. If there were extra teams, he'd be back in the league. I think for sure someone would pick him up. And of course, the other thing to note here, and the reason why Envoy was getting clowned a bit for this, is that Envoy also came as an up-and-coming talent. Everyone did at some point. And this is what Ake says. I like Dill, but this is supreme cope. He was getting top 80 as an amateur in World War II, and even top 40 in BO4, the game that he eventually broke into the scene on when he got his opportunity. Talent clearly exists everywhere, but talent isn't always realized without opportunity. And he goes to screenshot Envoy's results when he first started competing. Top 80, top 48, top 40 with Midnight Esports, and then of course they qualified through the Pro League qualifier after making a couple of changes, and then from there Envoy was known as a really good player in BO4 to such an extent that he got picked up to the Huntsman, let's not forget, effectively real OpTic, back in the 2019 season, or 2020 of course, when MW19 officially came out. So there's a bit of reply to this, right, as TJ says, top 80, top 80, what's going on? Bad team because no pro points, and I was just god-awful at that game. No one could kill me at the GB booth though, and Ake says this, it's a pretty big problem now, the game isn't different enough every year, it's basically copy and pasted, but players could go from bad to good or vice versa with how much the game changed on a new release. That was certainly the case for Eggs back in the day. I could agree, some of that vast change was Jetpack era. Talent is also down a lot because there isn't things like 2Ks, 250s, pro downs, barely a search and destroy scene. All players around my age were all S&D superstars for years before the league. It'll never get back to that though. Now, I think Envoy is absolutely right on this one, and fundamentally, while I do disagree with what Envoy says, I don't think the criticism should really be going Envoy's way. The criticism should be going towards the league, because it has invited in this environment, really, where this is now a conversation. You've got players saying, yeah, we should keep 12 teams because we don't have the talent. It's not because the talent doesn't exist in theory. It's simply that the talent isn't getting funneled through the Call of Duty scene as it used to. Now, you can argue whether that doesn't really matter and putting the players that we do have in challenges into the league would still be good, which I would argue is true, but do we have the Simps, the HyDras, the Illies, to be fair? You know, number of other players over the last few years that came through the ranks of playing pro downs, S&D scenes, you know, getting noticed for years before they became an official pro player. My major critique of the league on this will always remain the age restriction. The fact that you have to be 18 to play challenges is just there's one thing I could change about CODs, that would be what I would change, because I think it's horrific to stifling the progress of the scene, especially when the search and destroy scene doesn't exist as it used to, and maybe it's never going to get back to where it was. Sure, could the league help in some regards? Absolutely, I think they could try some things. But the main problem is that players who are like 15, 14 years of age, who are incredible, talented gamers, are they going to play COD? No, they're going to go play some other game that they can actually compete in professionally before then. I mean, in Valorant, you have to be 18 to play in the main league. Sure, I've got no real issue with you've got to be 18 to play in the main CDL league. But in challenges, like in Valorant, you can play challenges, I think, when you're like 15, 16, and in CODs, you've got to be 18 regardless. I mean, we're lucky that a guy like JoeDeceives was even noticed, frankly, as the youngest player now in the league. So I think there's two sides to this discussion, but the main thing that I think people should be caring about is, you know, the lack of tier 2 and the fact that, as Austin says, it's basically disintegrating because there's no focus on it right now, and various things that they could and should try to fix those issues. But, you know, as it stands, it doesn't really feel like a lot of these things are actually happening. But very much interested to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
He actually pissed me off. I went to the bar, we went to that after party bar, and he's like talking to me, he's like, damn, you finally won a spiral gunfight on protocol, and I'm like, Ben, what the fuck are you talking about?
He's pocket watching your spiral like gameplay.
Yeah, like this guy's like, oh dude, you finally won a spiral gunfight. I'm like, Ben, shut the fuck up. You think I give a shit if I won a spiral gunfight? Like, what are you saying?
Yeah, dude, like the flow, like, dude, you guys look good. Dude, comms are great and all, but dude, I'm so glad you won that spiral gunfight. That's probably like, what's
Yeah, I'm
up
like,
for you
bro,
guys.
this guy is actually a moron.
That's my boy right there. Like, why are you cooking him? That's PGA like goat right there.
Nah, that guy's not real. I'm convinced. Wait, he was hating on our search. We didn't lose a search. The fuck does he mean hating on our
I
search?
think you guys are 11-1 in S&D. I think we're the only one that gave you guys a loss on land.
Yeah, you guys beat us in winners finals.
Yeah, and I can't even get past JoeDeceives. Ready, break on me, break on two. 1, 2, 3.